Congratulations, you have an idea for a book. I'm Sara Lubratt, and today I'm going to be giving you my top 8 tips on how to write a book in 2022. You have an idea for a story, and so today we're going to be talking about how to turn that idea into an actual book. If you go on to enjoy this video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a big thumbs up because that really supports my channel. And if you enjoy this video and want to see more like it from me, make sure that you hit that big red subscribe button. And now, without further ado, let's get into my top 8 tips for writing a book in 2022. The first tip is figuring out what you want to write. Because you're watching this video, I assume you already have some kind of an idea in mind, but I'm going to give you a couple tips on things that you might want to consider before you start writing. There seems to be a bit of a spectrum in the writing community between people who like to plot books and people who like to fly by the seat of their pants. Often we call these people plotters and pantsers, and people tend to fall somewhere on this spectrum between the two. I myself definitely fall closer to the pantser side, but I do like going into writing a story knowing a couple things about my story and its world. Most story ideas originate with the what if concept, and this is fantastic. If you know what the gist of your story is going to be or the heart of your story, this is often called the premise. The premise is often the answer to the what if question, and after you have the premise for your story, you might want to start thinking about your plot and your characters. How much you want to know about your plot and your characters will depend on where you fall on the plotter to pantser spectrum, but you will figure that out as you go. There are lots of character questionnaires online that you can fill out if you want to know a lot about your characters before you go into writing a story, but I think that some of the most important things for knowing your characters before you start writing are knowing what they really want. Like, what do they want that they currently do not have? What about their lives do they want to change? They could want to change their situation. They could want their life to stay completely the same. But figuring out what your character desires, aka what they want the most, is incredibly helpful for writing your book, because if you don't know what your character wants, it is very hard to get the reader compelled enough to continue to read. Once you know what they want, it is often helpful to figure out what is stopping them from achieving or getting that thing that they desire. And then you can also go into things like, what are they most afraid of, or what is the biggest secret that they are trying to keep from someone or from everyone. And in my experience as much more of a pantser, these questions often give me enough information to begin writing, and then I figure out more about my characters as I continue to write. It can also be helpful if you know roughly what's going to happen in the plot or subplots, which are smaller plot lines throughout the story. The plot is often about promises and payoffs, and it can be helpful going into a story to know which promises to be giving your reader and potentially what payoff scenes you want later on in the books to make those promises feel like they have been achieved. This could involve battle scenes, romantic scenes, twists. It could be anything that you feel like you need to know about the plot before going into writing the book. I know tip number 1 was kind of a long one, but those are the foundations of what you should probably have, or what most people typically need before they start writing a book. Tip number 2 is breaking out your timeline. How long do you want your book to be? Or maybe a better question would be, how long do you want to take in writing the book before it's done? The average novel is about 80,000 to 100,000 words, which is somewhere between 300 and 400 printed book pages. But if you want to finish writing the first draft of your story in about 3 months, that means that you should probably be writing somewhere around 1,000 words a day. But if you want to work on the first draft of your story over the span of a year, you can write as little as 275 words a day. But I find this step very helpful in breaking out my idealistic timelines that I'm setting for myself, because working towards a goal with something as big as writing a book is very helpful in actually accomplishing that. However, there is no time that is too short for writing a book, and there is no time that is too long for writing a book. Whatever pace you want to go at is absolutely fantastic. Tip number 3 is to schedule and protect your writing time. This one is pretty straightforward. Because we just talked about breaking out your timeline and over what span of time you want to accomplish writing a book, it is very important to schedule and protect your writing time, and this is at no set time during the day. Every writer works a little bit differently. For me, I know that I work best with about 4 writing sprints of about 20 to 30 minutes each, so if I have 20 to 30 minute time blocks throughout my day, I try to shoot for about 4 of them so that I can accomplish a solid amount of writing, but these are often scattered scattered throughout the afternoon and evening for me. I need to be better about scheduling writing during the day, which is something that I'm working on in 2022, but I'm very good at protecting my writing time at night. However, I also stay up oftentimes way too late in order to get my writing done. But scheduling and protecting your writing time is a great way to stay productive and moving forward in writing your book. Tip number 4 is keeping an ideas document. What this means for me is keeping a document on my computer titled whatever my placeholder title is, ideas document. So for one of the books that I'm working on right now, it is called Project DE Ideas Document, and this is where I keep every single idea that I've had for this story. This has been very helpful for me with organization and being able to find scraps of ideas later on, which I used to just write down on post-it notes and never find again. But keeping them all in one place helps me not lose them as much. It's also a great way to track ideas. Even if you cut something out later, you can put it back in the ideas document and then maybe add it into a sequel or a different book entirely. And sometimes it's just really fun to reread those ideas documents just to see how much your story has changed or evolved, and for the most part, improved while you've been working on it. Tip number 5 is getting a critique partner. A critique partner is someone that you trust, that you can send a chapter to or a snippet of your story to just get feedback on. And this can be another writer, this can be a parent, this can be a teacher, this can be a really close friend. Basically someone that you trust to give you good feedback about your book and honest feedback on how to improve what you sent them and also how to improve in continuing to write your book. Having a critique partner can be incredibly helpful when you get stuck because they can act as a great sounding board to talk through your ideas until you figure out how you want to progress. Tip number 6 is to keep your eye on the bigger picture. Basically, what is your goal for the project? Are you writing a story idea because it's an idea that you have not seen and that you want to read? Is this something that you want one of your friends to read? Is this a story idea that you want to publish and get out in front of, hundreds to thousands of tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of people? Keeping your eye on the bigger picture can often help keep you a little bit more motivated to continue writing your story. I know for me personally, several of the stories that I have written / am writing are books with premises that I have not seen that I really want to read, and so therefore I must finish writing this book in order for myself to read it, and then beyond that I'm hoping that other people will get to read it someday. But that can be such a motivating factor to remind myself that I am writing this book because it's one that I want to read. Tip number 7 is rewards. We are not above bribes here. Writing a book can be a very long process, and so it can be extremely helpful to have structured rewards as a part of writing your book. These rewards can be of any size. It's basically whatever matters the most to you and will help motivate you to hit that next milestone. When I finished the first draft of one of my books, what I did was I went and got it printed out so I could hold it. And then I went and bought myself a notebook and colored pens, and that was such a fun celebration. However, sometimes I like treating myself differently. I've gone out to dinner to celebrate the ends of drafts. I've bought myself new books. I had a friend that bought herself some new bookshelves. I had another friend that bought herself a cake and a bottle of wine when she was done with a draft. So these rewards can be as often as you want and whatever you want. You could reward yourself with a gummy bear or a piece of chocolate every time you write 100 words. Like whatever you want and whatever you would consider to be the most motivating to continue writing is how you should choose to reward yourself, because writing a book is a really, really cool thing and you should reward yourself. And tip number 8 is editing later. This is especially prevalent in the first draft because you can't edit a blank page. Even if your idea is not as perfect as you want it to be when you first write it down, you can always go back and improve it, but if you try to keep editing what you've already written, you are never going to keep writing. I have gotten stuck in that trap before, and this is certainly something that gets easier as you continue to write. But when I was writing my first book, I fell into that trap of just going back and editing and editing and editing, and the book never actually got better because I never finished it. But now I take a lot of comfort in just getting the first draft out and trusting my future editing self to make it better when it needs to be made better. And the last thing that I want to end on is a reminder to be nice to yourself. Life happens, life gets in the way sometimes, and so you might not be working on your story as much as you want to, to, but progress is progress, and any words that you write on that page are more words than you had at the beginning of the day. And so even when progress is slow, progress is progress. With that, congratulations again on wanting to write a book. I am so excited for you. Writing is very, very fun, and there is a great community structured around it, and I wish you good luck and happy writing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sara Lubratt, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.